Are you stuck? How about unhappy? Join Alena Chapman, author, mentor, and life coach for Magical Moments with Alena as she challenges you to get out of the doldrum and start living your life to the fullest. In just 60 minutes, Alena will help you take control of your life and push you to do the things you never thought you'd do. So get ready to take back your power and celebrate life with Magical Moments featuring Alena Chapman.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Magical Moments. I'm your host, Alena Chapman, and as you know, this show is all about the ease and the betterment you can have in your life. And today, I have a magical nugget for you. Now, I had to really think about this one, folks, because this one might not be the most popular. In fact, if I get questions on anything, folks, I have a feeling it's going to be on this one. But that's okay. That's okay. Because I think it still needs to be said, because it will help you with relationships. It will help you with the love for yourself. It will also loosen one of those awful chains we put on ourselves. So I'm bringing it forward. And let's start with this. Words and actions form our character. Now, we say, Alena, what's such a big deal about that? Everything. Because, see, I see it more now than I've ever seen it. In fact, I've seen it for the last 4 or 5 years. And we tend to stand on our so-called high horse. We're going into the holiday season. I still see it. I still see people who have this, whatever it is that we feel so right about, quote unquote. I call it the righteousness movement. And it can be on anything. But we think we are right. And that can be the so-called evolved spiritual person. It can be the person who's political. It can be the person who is for human rights. It can be the person who just wants to do something and thinks they're right. A computer person, a game person. It can be anyone. But we get onto this platform where we think we are right. And there's no room for anything else. Now, is that wrong? Is it wrong to have strong beliefs? No. And if that's what you are, that's fantastic. But remember, let's go back. Words and actions show our character. And is this righteousness holding us up from being the person we truly want to be? Is it holding us up from being a caring person? Is it holding us up from being a person who spreads love in the world? Is it holding us up from showing one of our daughters or our sons the real love we have inside for them? As we're going into the holiday, Christmas, Hanukkah, and all the other wonderful holidays of the season, isn't it time to kind of say, wait a minute, is it so important for me to be right at every cost? Or can I believe in myself and in my values and know that those are right for me, and instead be that person that loves other people, even though they might not believe totally what I believe? And can I show them my belief by my loving actions, my caring, my reaching out? When you start to do that and you step over into that wonderful world, all of a sudden, you will start seeing that person in a different light. you will start seeing what they need. You will start seeing their heart. And there's no better gift in the whole wide world. So this season, let's take off that righteousness hat, shall we? And let's really put to use those words and actions in the way that we want to bring the best and higher self of ourselves into the world. It could become one of the most magical Christmases you've ever seen, or Hanukkah, or any other holiday. All right. Now, let's go on. I have a wonderful guest. I mean, he is just a beautiful, beautiful man, and I am privileged to have him on. His name is Sam Liebowitz. He's from New York. He's known as the Conscious Consultant. He is a mentor, coach, speaker, healer, serial entrepreneur, and author of the #1 best-selling book, Everyday Awakening. I love that. Don't you just love that? Everyday Awakening. He has been in business since 1993 and has owned several successful businesses, so he is a true entrepreneur. His current ventures include Talking Alternate Broadcasting and Double Diamond Wellness in Manhattan. Actually, Sam was one of the first people who interviewed me on his show way back when I was first starting out, which was so generous of him. So I do have a very fond place in my heart for him. Sam has lectured in several venues in New York City, including being featured and a speaker at TEDxUpperWestSide in 2016. Ooh, that's awesome right there. And with that, I'd like to welcome on Sam Liebowitz. Hello, Sam. How are you?
Hi, Alena. Oh, it's so good to be here with you. Thank you so much for having me on your show. And I loved your magical moment.
You did. Yeah.
It just reminds me of the old saying that you can be right or you can be happy, but you can rarely be both.
Oh, isn't that the truth?
Because if we're so busy making ourselves right, we're making other people wrong, and then it never leads to anything good, and then we're not really going to be happy.
It's true.
So I would rather be happy than right. So I gave up being right a long time ago.
Yeah, you know what? And I do believe that everyone has, it's funny because I used to be really, really heavy into politics and my way of believing politics, okay? This is my personal story. I'm not saying everybody who, you can believe what you want to believe in politics. I'm not pushing that. But I was pretty heavy, and I'd listen to all the stuff, I was on NPR all the time listening, and I felt I had to bring that forward into the world. But you know what? It never changed anyone's mind. My boasting, my everything, it didn't change. And it left me every time with a heaviness. So yes, yep. If you give that up, oh my gosh, that heaviness lifts right off.
Okay. Yeah, I'm with you. I used to also be very much wanting to change people's minds, but now I actually care more about their hearts than their minds. Me too. So let's talk a little bit about being a conscious consultant. I love that term. How did you come up with that term, and what do you actually do? Well, it's kind of a funny story because I would say very early in my life, and when I was in college and a little bit after college, I kind of was thrust into this, I'll call it a spiritual experience with some friends, for lack of a better descriptor. And I was very involved with it. A lot of my identity was tied up in it.
Yeah.
And over time, though, it got more and more difficult. There were some real challenges. One of my friends turns out to be schizophrenic, and it was just... It was just too difficult, and I had to walk away from the whole thing just to save my own sanity. And afterwards, I was really kind of lost. I kind of didn't know what to do. I was kind of just drifting, floating, because I just kind of felt like if spirit was behind this, how could things have gone so wrong?
Ooh, that's a great
question. So I just threw myself into being an entrepreneur and starting small businesses and building them up and maybe selling them or changing and doing stuff. And then because I had started several businesses, I started lecturing about how to start your own small business, and people would come up to me afterwards and say, hey, I'm thinking of starting my own business. Would you mentor me? Would you coach me? And I'd be like, okay, sure. And so I started, being a kind of a business consultant, right?
Right.
And then I like to say that the universe will have its way with you, whether you want it to or not.
Isn't that true?
And slowly but surely, it kind of nudged me back in this direction, starting off very innocently. I just happened to find some old recordings of Tony Robbins and getting into the personal development stuff again. And I shared it with my wife, who's a therapist and very open, and she loved it, and started going to those, seminars and events. And this was probably 16, 17 years ago.
Wow.
And then from doing that, I found a local group that called the New York Power Team that would meet once a month and sort of remind ourselves of all these things we learned in the seminar so we could keep applying it in our daily life. And what they would do is they'd have a speaker come in who would talk about some healing modality. And usually because then they were doing the workshop on the weekend, and this stuff was like all new to me. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And so I'd go to the meetings, I'd come home at night, talk to my wife about it, and say, hey, and they're doing a workshop this weekend. Do you want to come? And she'd be okay. So, learned all about the Sedona method, the Brandon Bay's The Journey,
yes,
all kinds of healing. And I wasn't going because I ever in my wildest imagination thought of myself as a healer. It was more for my own healing.
Right.
Because I knew that underneath emotionally, there was still a lot of turmoil I had to deal with.
Sure. I get that. Yeah.
And then slowly over time, and then I started taking all these different workshops. And then there was that one modality, that one thing where it's like they teach you the modality and they pair you up and you work on each other. And there was this woman, I'm still friends with her today. There was this training session out at one of the airport hotels. And the second day, they asked for volunteers to come up to demonstrate it. And it was a very intuitive kind of healing modality. I was really interested in trying it. So first they're like, does anybody have a condition they want to work on? And this woman raises her hand and goes, my lungs are all congested. I'm having a hard time breathing. I feel like I'm about to come down the flu. I would love for someone to work on me. And they're like, okay, come on up. Who would like to work on her? And I raised my hand, and I'm in the back of the room. And it was amazing. The teacher was amazing, but he's a lousy teacher, but amazing healer. But I think I kind of sort of got it. So they picked on me, and I go up there and I do this method with her, 5 minutes. It's a very fast, non-hands-on form of healing. And afterwards, I'm like, so how do you feel? And she turns to me with these big eyes and goes, oh my God, I can breathe. I go, oh, that's wonderful. She goes, no, listen. She takes this deep breath. You hear the congestion is gone. I'm like, oh, that's wonderful. She goes, no, you don't understand. I've had chronic bronchitis since I was 6 years old in South Africa. I haven't been able to breathe like this since I was a little kid.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, oh. And so the light bulb goes off on top of my head, and it's like, oh, so this isn't just for me. I could use this to help other people.
Yes.
And so I come home that night, I'm telling my wife the story about it, and I'm like, what do I do with this? I mean, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm a business person. What do I do with this? And then it kind of came to me. It's like, well, I'm still kind of a coach and a consultant. I'm just a different kind. I'm one who now works more in the energetic realms, on the consciousness, on the whole person, not just on one aspect. So that's how kind of the idea of the conscious consultant was born. I'm still a consultant, but I'm more concerned about a person's consciousness. I'm more concerned about their awareness and really their patterns that they're living into life, and not just how much money are they making or how to help get them past a blockage, which is why most people come to me. But then inevitably we get into some very deep stuff.
Well, because I think, a lot of times people will come because they feel like, okay, I got a block about money. Just let's use that one because that's a very common one. But they don't understand that there is so much more. I mean, it could be, you can do an affirmation, but if you really don't understand yourself and your relationship maybe with the energy of money, or your relationship, it might be the weirdest little quirky thing in the whole wide world that's easy to fix. But if you don't know yourself and you do not know your own consciousness, then it's a hard uphill battle that could take quite a long time to fix.
And not only that, if you're having a hard time at work, on your job or in your business, you're probably having that same issue somewhere else in life.
Yes. Yes.
And so it's really about finding the breadcrumbs and following that trail back to what is the underlying challenge or issue or trauma or perspective that's just not serving you anymore.
That's right.
And inevitably, when we unwind that and kind of find out what it is and we shed a light on it, not only do things improve in the office or in the business, but they improve in the personal life. They improve in your physical life. They improve in like all these different aspects, because we're holistic beings. Who we are is who we are. We're not, I mean, yes, we may show up kind of a little bit differently at work than we show up at home, but we're still us.
We're still us.
So regardless of whether we're with our coworkers, with our friends, with our family, with colleagues, we're the same person. We may be accessing slightly different aspects of ourselves, but we're all one person. And so if there's some issue, some challenge there in one aspect of life, it's there everywhere. It just doesn't necessarily show up the same. So, most people will show up because of a challenge in the office or in their business because that's what we value most, right? It's like, if I'm not making money, if I'm not being a good provider, I need to do something to fix this. We're willing to pay money for that.
Right.
But if it's just like, oh, I don't feel well, I'm not really showing up well for my family, and if it's more of a fuzzy thing, we're not necessarily willing to pay to really do that. So, it's kind of like the money stuff is kind of like the side door to get in, to really then get in and deal with the real stuff. So that's why a lot of people kind of come to me and they think they're coming to me for work-related challenges, but really they're coming to me for life-related challenges.
Yeah, because we are one. I mean, for the listeners especially, it is that we are who we are, like you said. And that means we're coming to every situation. And Sam, you need to correct me if I'm wrong on this, but we're coming to every situation with what we believe, or our experiences in life, or our just every part of ourselves. We are showing up.
And the energy that we're holding.
Yes.
So it's kind of like if you have a fight with your wife or husband, and then you go to the office and you're all upset, you're bringing that energy with you, and people can feel it.
They can.
But what happens is, if we're one of your coworkers, we're actually interpreting it that you must be mad at us, and they have no idea what happened at home, when it can actually have nothing to do with us. And so this is where we have a tendency to think that it's always about us, but actually it's always about the other person.
Yes. And how we show up in the world. Again, those actions and thoughts. That's what brings out the best in that other person or not, and the best in ourselves. And we really do have to work on ourselves to be the person that others can show up their very best for us too, or we are there for other people. And it always starts with us. Isn't that funny?
Absolutely.
And
absolutely.
I
and that's
always,
kind of the subtitle of my book.
Yes.
Is You Are More Powerful Than You Know.
Which I love.
Because I really wanted to get that message out for people to understand that we are all much more powerful than we realize, because we create our lives through the decisions we make, through the perspectives we have, through what we decide to focus on, through our experiences, through all of this, through our energy, our attitudes, everything that we bring into life. We're creating the life around us. So when we understand that, then we understand that, okay, we may not have control over the external stuff. We may not have control over the things on the outside of us, but we have 100% control over the inside. We have 100% control over how we decide to respond to any given situation.
And isn't that the truth? And this is the thing. It sounds easy. But if you are used to being a person, and let's talk about this, a person who is rash, who does fly off, who does have a lot of anger, well, you've got to look at that. Is that really what you want to present? And that is something within you have to look at. Why am I triggered so easily? Why am I letting these emotions bottle up inside me and just pop out? These are the things we look at. And when you look at that and you find that out and you let that go, you open up the energy. You open up everything in your life.
And even the attitude that we come to with that is very important. So as opposed to being upset at yourself for being triggered or for being angry or whatever, to just be curious.
Yes.
Because sometimes our triggers are the greatest gold that we have, because they show us where our real work is. And before we even get there, I mean, the first is just to have the consciousness, to have the awareness of how we're showing up, because sometimes we're just being who we are and we're not even aware that people think we have an angry face or a cold or we seem upset all the time. We're not even aware of it because we may think, oh no, I'm a happy person. But the appearance to other people is like, man, he looks like he's upset all the time. I wonder what's going on with him. So it's first taking that first step back and really reflecting and looking on, like, how do we show up? How are we really feeling? And really being present to what's going on. So, and that's why, like, just sitting and being still is so important. I don't want to call it meditating, because sometimes that's a little too far out there for people to they think it's hard. Be open to.
Yeah, they think it's hard.
But just to sit.
Just to be.
Without distraction, without being in conversation, without listening to anything, just sit and feel.
Yes.
And just, what's going on for you? Just ask that question. What's going on for me right now? What's coming up for me? Exactly. And when we take those moments and we just take a breath, our breath is like such a wonderful tool. We just take a breath before we have a conversation. It's like, oh, what's going on? That moment, the more we practice it, the more it gives us a little bit of distance, thereby giving us a little bit of perspective, thereby helping us to actually see ourselves just a little bit more clearly.
You know, Sam, I do that. You know, I always, because sometimes, well, we've all kind of learned to shove things down. And I've used many tools, but I have found that I call it just being. So if I am upset, well, when I was younger, when I was unconscious competent, and I knew I was upset, but I couldn't figure it out, then I'd go get a sad movie. And I would put on the sad movie, and then halfway through, I am crying, but I'm not crying about the movie at all. I'm crying about everything that was inside, and it would bring it out, and it just worked for me. But then later, now, you know, I tend to say, "Whoa, I feel a little off." I don't feel like I'm upset. Why am I upset? Things were going pretty well. What's coming up? And I will actually just do that, and I call it just being. And because I'm one of those people who love to have fun, I'll get my hot tea and I will sit down in my chair or wherever I'm at in my car and just sit and think, all right, so what's going on? And I talk to myself, what's going on? And I just allow, and then when I get quiet and sip at my tea, it'll start to come. I love that technique, and it works.
Absolutely. And it's so funny.
That's where the power is, right? That's the power.
Yeah, right. And it's so funny hearing you, because I was the exact opposite.
Really?
Because things were like so difficult for me. I never liked watching sad movies. I always wanted to like comedies or science fiction or something uplifting. The opposite direction.
Yeah.
And now if something is bothering me, even if I'm not quite sure what it is, I just sit with it. I just let it be.
Yeah, let it be.
And it's like, do I even need to fix it? No. I just let it be, give it some space, and then see over time like what comes up. Because sometimes I'm the kind of person, I can be upset and I'm not even sure what I'm upset about in the moment.
Me too.
It takes me some time.
Yes.
So I just sit with it for as long as I need to sit with it. And sometimes it's a day, a week, a month, usually a week or two, and I'm usually out of it.
Yeah. I think the longest was mine about 2 days. So yeah. Everybody has their own.
I've had some like, deep inner stuff come up, feelings of unworthiness, feelings of not being good enough, of being compared.
Yeah.
And it will come up. And it's like, I don't even know what to do with it. And it's so funny because my wife and I, we're so opposite as well, where she has something come up, she's got to work on it. She's like, got to work on it, got to go to a therapist, got to do this, got to do that, and me, I'm just like, I don't even know what I need to do. I just need to sit with it, give it some room, give it some space, and see what it takes for it to evolve and change and shift on its own. And I'm not a pusher. I'm not anymore anyway. I don't kind of push it away. I don't push to kind of do it. It's just kind of what's natural. What do if I just give it some room and some space, what will naturally unfold?
And that's a good way. What did I see? People have heard this before, but it is true. And I'm still kind of working on this in myself. When I was 3 years old, Sam, I decided that I was on my own. But you know what? It causes havoc in relationships, in job. Well, we're going to have to take a break, but everyone, you need to come back and hear this, because I am going to show you how this just being can work. So you're listening to Magical Moments, and we're with Sam Liebowitz, who is fantastic. We will be right back.
This is Magical Moments with Alena Chapman, helping you find your ease and betterment. Stay tuned for more of this week's featured interview.
Welcome back to Magical Moments. And everyone, I'll tell you, this is such a cool interview. We're really getting down to important things and how we can better our lives. So I'm with Sam Liebowitz, and I was telling a story a little bit. We're talking about, just being and having stuff come up and being okay with that, And I was using, as you all know, I have been working on that little independent me, which started when I was 3. Dad burned the eggs. Mom wasn't around a whole lot. So I looked at the dogs and said, I'm on my own. And it sounds cute, and that's really cute. But oh my gosh, Sam, it has affected me in relationships. It's affected me in jobs. I'll do it myself. I'm independent. La, 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 the strong. And yes, it's built a very strong person, but at the sacrifice of so much more. So I had to just be. And I've had to just be a few times. I won't lie. It's an evolving. But I have to say, what I really came around to in my just being is how I started is to actually do the contrary of getting rid of it. I started to love it. Love that person. For me, I had to love that 3-year-old for her strength, for her being able to be okay with it, say, I will just take this in my own hands. But I had to love her to be able to then start to open up that very strong little girl to sharing, to know that she doesn't always have to be the one to handle everything. She doesn't have to be the one. She can allow people to come in. Do you see? And so, I really had to love it first. Isn't that interesting? I find that very interesting myself, and I'm the one who did it. So I don't know, that just being is a very big, important part of our growing.
I love that story because it perfectly illustrates one of the themes that I talk about in the book, which is how our stories that we tell ourselves inside our head really create our life. And it's like when we're little kids, we have some experience and we create a story around it, and it's the truth for us.
Oh,
now,
yeah.
the thing is,
Yeah.
the factual things that happened may be true, but the story includes an interpretation around it that may or may not be true. So like for you, you created this interpretation that, you were on your own.
Yes.
But was that really true?
No.
No, it wasn't
No,
really true.
not at all. I had a beautiful home, but
Right.
I was on my own.
Right. But and again, it's what I say is, and the stories did serve us at the time. Like those stories
They
helped
always
us to
do.
survive,
Yes,
and they
yes.
helped us to grow. But eventually, those stories no longer serve us. We outgrow them.
That's exactly
But
right.
we don't know that we've outgrown them, so we still hold on to them until we stop and we recognize what is our story around this.
Yes.
And when we look at our story and we recognize what it is, look, if it's serving you, still serving you, great, keep it going. But if it's not serving you, why not change it to a different story that's more empowering,
Yes.
that's more supportive of what you need today?
Yes. See, I love that. And that's exactly what you should do. All the things we grow up with, I find that people do hold on to beliefs from their childhood that are so damaging to who they could be. And it does, I don't think they even, because they're living that story, they can't see past their nose. But someone like you or I take a look at them and we think, my God, the potential that person has. That person can move mountains. They're so talented. They're so creative. Have you ever had that happen? You know what I'm talking about?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, most people, and this is the thing, like most people, they're never exposed to this concept. They're never taught that they even have a story. So they don't even think it's a story. They just think it's the truth.
Yes.
And it's amazing. And actually, some of the most accomplished people I know, they're so accomplished because they're constantly trying to prove themselves to either their mother or their father. And so they're working so hard and they're accomplishing so much because they just want to get some approval. And they don't realize that the most important approval they need is from themselves.
And that's what will bring the true happiness and thus the true success.
And the recognition that, what, you don't need anybody's approval, that we are intrinsically valuable for who and what we are just by being here today. My dear friend Jennifer Huff likes to say that, all these different facets of the universe had to conspire for us to even be here.
Isn't
I mean, when you think about it, there are like billions of stars, billions and billions of planets. If just the right things didn't come together, like none of us would be here. And even if a bunch of us that were here, if like one of our ancestors didn't survive long enough to procreate, we wouldn't be here. Like if this didn't happen, we wouldn't be. If that didn't, I mean, so much had to happen in order for us just to be born and to live. And it's like, well, if all of that had to happen for us to be here, the universe must think it's a pretty good idea for us to be here.
Isn't
Even
that
if
right?
we can't see it, there is some reason here. And life itself is calling us forward. So if life thinks we're a good idea, who are we to argue with that?
I know. And I think we do. We need to look at that. I always say we are here to experience and create and love. We're here to taste the life.
Absolutely.
And to open ourselves. And if there's a belief in us that is keeping us from that, then we need to just be, and we need to, because we're not living our full potential. And it's so simple. It is so simple. You said something earlier I want to tap on because I really like it, and I kind of live my life that way. And I also help others, but you said curiosity. That is a precious word. Be curious. Be curious in life. And I mean, Sam, how has being curious opened up your life?
Well, to me, I'm very cognizant of the energy behind things. So even words have an energy behind them.
Yes.
And so the idea of being curious about what triggers me or why am I acting a certain way, it's more playful in a way. It's more inquisitive. It's more fun. I like to have fun in life.
Me too.
So rather than I have to work on this or, oh my God, I have this trigger, what's going on with me? It's like, I wonder what's going on there. Oh, look at you little devil, you know. So it's like, let's have more fun in life, right? We all enjoy having fun. And when we think about what kinds of people are we most attracted to, we're attracted to people who are energetic, fun, lively, kidding, joyful. So if those are the kinds of people we're attracted to, and we want more of that in our life, how do we get it? We embody it ourselves.
We do.
So it's not like we have to do something or we should do something, but it's just if that's what we want, then why not embody it ourselves and have a more fun, joyful life?
Yes. Why not?
And why not? And for everybody, it's different. Like some people have a very dry sense of humor. And you may not, they may be teasing you and joking with you, and you may not even realize it because they're so straight. But if you really pay attention, it's like, oh, they're like having fun, and like you can laugh about things. It doesn't have to all look the same. We're 7 billion different individuals. We all have our own little quirks, our own little isms
that's what makes
the way
it so
we
special.
show up.
Yeah, that's what makes us special. Those quirks.
And they say variety is the spice of life.
It is.
Like, let's take in all the flavors. Let's take in all the smells, all the sights, all the colors. Life can be such a joyful, expansive journey if we just allow it to be. And that's the key thing. It's our own resistance that stops us from having that kind of life. And that resistance comes from those stories we make up. It comes from the interpretations about the examples, the things that we've been through, the experiences that we've had. Like my friend John, he created this book. He curated this book called Thank God I ... And he collected all these stories of people who had been through horrendous situations in their life, almost being killed, being raped, having cancer, just all these horrible things. But how the people in these stories ended up seeing that this most traumatic thing in their life ended up being their biggest gift.
Yes.
And I read this book a long time ago. And just the one story I always remember is this one woman who had been raped, not once, but like twice by the same man. Oh. And it was a horrible, horrible thing that she went through at the time. And then nobody believed her. And she had a really hard time dealing with it. But what happened is once she came to her own healing around what happened, and then she started working with other women who had experienced rape, she became a huge advocate. And I think she lived up in Canada, and now she travels the world. I mean, before the pandemic, traveled the world and speaking on this and advocating for it. And she had the most incredible life. And she's like, thank God I had experienced that, because without that, I wouldn't be who I am today. And now she has just incredible life. And his book is filled with stories like that aren't necessarily so violent as that, but it could be from getting cancer. It could be from being in a car accident. It could be from like being an orphan. It could be from so many different things.
So many things. Yeah.
And I mean, we can see it as a horrible, awful, tragic thing that happened to us, or we can see it as something that happened for us. In the same way, like I talked earlier on about my path and how early on it was very, very difficult and I had such a hard time. I've always tried not to regret anything. I've always tried to to wait until I got some perspective. And now I actually am so grateful for those experiences that I went through, because they helped to make me who I am today. And you know what? I'm pretty okay with who I am today.
I'm pretty okay
I wouldn't
too.
be the person I am today without those experiences. And the thing that will always stay in my mind about it is 10 years ago, someone who had been probably my best friend when I was a kid, who was just like me. Jewish kid brought up in the Bronx, had an older brother, an older sister. We went to the same elementary school, went to the same junior high school. 10 years ago, he committed suicide.
Oh, my.
And I had found out just a year or two before then that he had suffered from depression most of his life. I didn't even know this. He was always the life of the party. He was always so much fun to be around.
Wow.
And when he did this, I just realized that, like, oh my God, that could have been me.
Yeah.
I mean, we had such similar backgrounds. That could have been me.
It could have been. Isn't that amazing?
But because of these experiences that I went through, it deepened my appreciation, or it deepened my sense of self in some way that I didn't end up going down that path.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's hard to say, like, what would have happened had I not, met these people, if I'd not had this experience? I mean, who knows what I would be doing today? Would it be would I be the conscious consultant today? Probably not. I mean, maybe, but I don't know. Those experiences I had were so formative.
And but it does take, I think, don't you think for you, you had to make the choice to open to your past in a different way.
Yeah.
We have to take that first step. Go ahead.
And I tell you, it took a lot of work. I mean, I thought I had dealt with it. I was aware of it. And then I did some more work on it, and other things showed up. And then, like 6.5 years ago, I started doing this specific kind of work. And I found, like, I from doing this work, I felt like I dropped this 1,000-pound energetic weight off my shoulders, and I felt so much lighter about it. And the content of what I experienced that night was nothing new, but I was just holding on to the energy of it, and I didn't even realize it, how much it was weighing me down. So even when we think we've dealt with something, there are deeper and deeper and deeper levels to it.
It's like an onion.
And like a friend of mine says, it's like the never-ending PhD of life. True. We don't have to look at it as like, oh my God, I got so much work to do. I'm going to be working on myself my whole life. No, it's like, whoa, I get to work on myself. I get to, like, experience these greater and greater levels of freedom and joy and happiness by uncovering more and more of what's going on inside of me. Yeah. So it's changing it from being work to being something joyful. I mean, it is called, quote unquote, the great work, but it's a great work of joy. It doesn't have to be like this hard, difficult thing. Yeah,
when I think about my continual growth, I never think of it as work, because every time I peel back another layer of that onion, as I like to call it, it frees me. It frees me, and I see the benefit in my life, and I'm happier. I feel good. It's not work. And also there's that sense of achievement too. There's a level of a sense of achievement and discovery. I think it's
and liberation.
And liberation
from what we had been holding on to.
Totally.
And sometimes we're not that motivated to do it for ourselves. So if you're not going to do it for yourself, do it for your children. Yeah. Do it for your partners. Do it for your family. Do it for your friends. Because the more we engage in this kind of work, the better role model we become, the more present we become to other people, the more we're able to contribute to society.
Yes.
So it's either we do it for ourselves or we do it for everyone else. Yes. Either way, it's the same result.
It's the same result. You talk a lot about energy. I mean, the energy of words, I talk about that too. The energy, lifting that energy off of us. Energy, I find it so fascinating. I think we read energy before we even read the person. Do you agree?
Oh, absolutely. We all have felt it, right? We've all like come into a room where maybe before we got there, there's a group of people in the room, maybe a party or something. We walk in and we feel there's a lot of tension in the air. And then we find out later that two people there just had a fight.
Yeah.
Right. But then we walk in another room and there are a bunch of people there and every feels light and joyful and stuff. And then we found out someone just told a really funny story.
Yes.
So even before we get there, we can feel it. Absolutely. We're like these giant antennas that we're receiving and transmitting these feelings all the time. And we have this illusion that we're so separate and distinct from everything else. And we're not. We're so interconnected. I mean, physics has been telling us this for years. And it's been saying actually the same things that mystics have been telling us for centuries. If not thousands and thousands of years.
Yeah.
The closer and closer we look at the stuff we're made of, the atoms, the protons, the electrons, the neutrons, and we break those down into smaller and smaller particles until, you know what? The deeper and deeper we look, the less and less we see. And the less and less we're discrete little particles, and the more we're like waves of energy. The more we're just, these vibrations, for lack of a better term. So, energy is not that distinct.
No, it's not.
We're all interconnected. We all have an effect on each other.
We really do. And people, I don't always think see it. So if I go into a room and I'm having an energy of maybe not feeling worthy or not feeling, let's use that. And I go into a room like that and I'm wearing it. That what we believe, James Allen, as a man thinketh, as what we believe about ourselves, we think we have it hidden away, but we're vibrating it. We think we're putting up a mask, but people read that. In fact, that's if you take a sales course, because I've known from people who are very good at sales, they say they read that underlying energy. They can read that underlying energy, and that people wear that on, they say they just wear it in their actions, but really it's the vibration they're vibrating at.
Now here's the thing. To really be able to feel a person's energy truly accurately, it's all about presence.
Yes.
It's all about how present we are with the other person. But here's the catch.
Define that a little bit. Define
in order
that.
to be present is you're totally with the person. You're hearing them, you're seeing them, you're feeling them. You feel something in your body, which is what they're feeling. It's your attention is totally with them.
You're not shopping at the grocery store. You're not thinking of picking up the kids.
Right. Not thinking about what happened this morning, not thinking about what you have to do in the afternoon, but what's happening right here, right now in the moment.
Yeah.
However, to really develop that level of presence to a point like you're saying that you can really feel someone, it's first about being present with ourselves. Yes. When we work on ourselves, and because those stories that are running around inside our head, those programs that have been running us, if we're not aware of them, if we're not conscious of them, they take us out of presence.
Yeah.
And the more that we shine a light on them, the more that we learn not to live into them, the more we're just aware of them, then we can be present with someone because we know what's ours and what's theirs, what's not ours.
Yeah.
And so by really, one of my teachers says that real power is presence, because the person who is more present in a conversation actually knows more of what's going on than the other person.
That's exactly
If you're a
right.
negotiation table and you're more present, you can see where the other person is nervous or anxious or worried or afraid. And then you know what you need to do to either calm them down, to reassure them if they need to be reassured, or what direction to kind of take the conversation to move it forward in a positive way. So this is why I always say it all starts with us first, because when we do our own work, it affects every aspect of our life.
And everyone around us. Yep.
Yeah.
It is. It really is. And I don't think, it is that presence. It's funny. Presence, I've always had presence. I could, and I'll tell you what I found, why I gained presence when I could just leave things away. And I've done a lot of work, but I found that when you have a problem, but you become present, say there's something in your life that's a problem. Maybe there's one area of your life that's just not clicking right away. And you're in another part of your life. Maybe you're at your job or you are with friends, and you become totally present with them. When you go back to that problem, you're seeing it through different eyes. It changes. Yeah. It actually changes. A lot of times we'll take the problem with us and we'll let that, not only our inner beliefs, by the way, there's a scientific study that says we are guided by our subconscious mind, which means all those old beliefs of ourselves, 95% of the time. That's a lot of time to be hampered by beliefs that bring us down. You know what I mean? But you're doing the work on that, but still we'll take those problems and we'll mull them in our heads, and we keep them and we carry them around like this ball of weight around us everywhere we go. And yet you can't be present when you do that. Let it go. Put it on a shelf. Just put it on a shelf. You'll come back to it. But then you can when you become present, and you go back to it morphs. It changes that problem. It changes your perspective of that problem. And meanwhile, you didn't miss all the wonderful gifts of being present. I think lots of times we do the work on ourselves, but we don't always understand when a problem comes into our life. And these are for people who are working so hard on all those old beliefs and think they have it all licked, but still hang up on the problems.
Yeah. Well, let me even shift that.
Go.
If life happens for us, are they really problems?
And
are there really such things as mistakes? Or is it merely how we learn?
It is.
When you're a little child, right, 3 years old, you're learning how to walk. Do you criticize yourself for falling down?
That's right.
No, you get back up and you keep trying. I mean, if we acted as little kids the way we do as adults, we would never get out of the crib.
It would become our comfort zone.
Exactly. Yet if we can shift our perspective and try on that life happens for us and not to us, now we can meet anything that comes to us with a little more ease.
Yes.
Without a little less stress.
With that curiousness.
And when we meet stuff with less stress, then we can get through things and more quickly, more easily, and thrive more.
And learn.
So even if you don't believe it, try it on. Life happens for us. And just see, does it serve you or not? Does taking that perspective on in your life, does it serve you? If it serves you, great. If it doesn't serve you, put it to the side, find something else that does.
That sounds fantastic. So, Sam, say a little bit about your book and where people can get. I know I want to read it. So where is this book? How can we get hold of it? And also your show, because he has a magnificent show, folks.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So the name of the book is Everyday Awakening, and it's Everyday Awakening because it's for everyday people. This is not for people who like sit and meditate, do yoga all the time. It's Everyday Awakening. You can find it in Barnes & Noble, Amazon, all the major book places. It's self-published through Amazon, Kindle Press. And I actually created a website that just takes you to the listing straight through. So if you just go to everydayawakeningbook.com, it'll take you right to the listing on Amazon.
Wonderful.
And if you go to my website, theconsciousconsultant.com, and you click on where it says Sam's book, when you get the book, you put in your name, your email address, the receipt, and then I have about 6 different gifts and giveaways and discounts for different programs that different people have contributed that you get for free. It's like almost $3,000 worth of free gifts.
Well, it's been an honor to have you on. And for everyone out there, guys, you know me and you know it's Soul Manifesto all the way. And I'll tell you what, our Green Terra group is such a supportive, incredible group that really helps us to take those difficult concepts, simplify them, and bring them into our lives. And I am watching these people just, oh my gosh, the ease and betterment and the growth that's happening is incredible. If you are someone who wants that discussion, that growth, and it is a discussion, folks, I don't do all the talking. Go to soulmanifesto.com. It's right there. It's a free program, 6 o'clock Thursday nights. Hey, just remember, spirit is love. And to live that love freely by opening ourselves up to the experience, letting go of what doesn't serve us, our heart grows bigger, and guess what? We grow in spirit more and more. As always, I love having you at Magical Moments. Namaste, my friends.
This has been Magical Moments with Alena, featuring Alena Chapman. If you missed an episode, download it now on iTunes, Spotify, TuneIn, CastBox, Deezer, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, or your favorite podcast platform. Learn more online at soulmanifesto.com.
Podcasts by Federated Media.